Welcome to a discourse rarely held in polite company. This is not a lesson in etiquette, but a strategic manual on applying Machiavellian psychology to dismantle the ego of those who disrespect or seek to manipulate you. The goal is to employ calculated, cold precision that targets the very foundation of an adversary's confidence, moving beyond crude insults to master a silent war where your kindness is often weaponized against you. To survive among those who hide behind smiles and false compliments, you must learn to observe, calculate, and act with an intention that never begs for approval. What follows are 8 techniques to achieve this, transforming you from a target into a strategist who leads the dance. To become an unbreakable mirror is to master the art of psychological reflection, a tactic that transforms the manipulator's aggression into their own trap. This principle is rooted in the understanding that those who seek to undermine or control others often operate on a fundamental assumption that their target will react predictably, providing emotional fuel such as anger, defensiveness, or hurt that can be exploited. Your role as the mirror is to fundamentally break this assumption. Instead of engaging with the content of their provocation on their terms, you calmly and neutrally reflect the dynamic itself back onto them. This is not about being passive. It is an active, strategic choice to disengage from the emotional battlefield and force them to stand alone in the space they intended to share with a reactive opponent. For example, when faced with a condescending remark in a meeting, such as, "It's clear you're not up to speed on this," the desired outcome for the speaker is to see you flounder, to watch you scramble to prove your competence, thereby validating their position as the critic. Your power lies in refusing this role. By responding with calm curiosity, "Can you help me understand what specific areas you feel I'm missing? I want to ensure we're perfectly aligned." You achieve several things simultaneously. First, you expose the vagueness of their attack, forcing them to provide concrete details or reveal that their criticism is baseless. Second, you reposition yourself as a collaborative partner seeking clarity, which highlights their antagonism. Third, and most importantly, you hold up a reflection of their own behavior. Their aggression is met with calm. Their attempt to create conflict is met with a request for cohesion. The ensuing silence as they struggle to formulate a substantive response becomes a powerful void where their confidence can crumble. They are no longer attacking a defensive victim. They're being calmly assessed by a peer. Over time, this technique trains the manipulator that interactions with you are fruitless and counterproductive, as they only ever encounter the unsettling clarity of their own reflection, leading them to seek easier targets elsewhere. Constructing an impenetrable emotional wall is the discipline of becoming a psychological fortress, making yourself immune to the attempts of others to manipulate your emotional state. This wall is not a sign of coldness or a lack of feeling, but rather a testament to profound self-control and the strategic understanding that your emotional reactions are a form of currency. To display them indiscriminately is to spend your power foolishly. Manipulators and those who despise you are adept at identifying emotional leaks, a flash of irritation, a tone of insecurity, a need for reassurance, and they will probe these weaknesses relentlessly. The goal of the emotional wall is to present a seamless, unassailable surface that offers no such leverage. When someone launches a verbal projectile designed to provoke, a sarcastic jab about your performance, or a guilt-tripping comment about your priorities, the wall ensures it simply thuds against a surface of absolute neutral composure and does not penetrate. Imagine a scenario where a family member attempts to provoke you with a loaded comment.
You've become so successful, you probably don't have time for family anymore. A reactive response would involve justification or counterattack, plunging you into their drama. The fortified response is to simply acknowledge the statement without accepting its premise. I appreciate your perspective, delivered with a calm and steady gaze. This does several things. It denies them the emotional explosion they crave. It deprives them of the ability to dictate the emotional tone of the interaction, and it places the burden of their discomfort back onto them. They're left with their own provocative words hanging in a silence that you control. This stoicism is not merely a momentary tactic, but a long-term strategy. By consistently refusing to react, you reprogram the dynamics of your relationships. People learn that attempts to elicit a negative emotional response from you are futile. This doesn't mean you never feel emotion. It means you have mastered the critical delay between stimulus and response, choosing when and where to express your feelings from a position of strength, not vulnerability. The emotional wall, therefore, is not a barrier to genuine connection, but a filter that ensures only those who approach with respect can ever glimpse what lies within.
Mastering the weapon of time is the strategic art of decoupling your responses from the artificial urgency imposed by others, thereby seizing control of the tempo of any interaction. In a world that prizes immediate reactions and rapid-fire communication, the ability to deliberately slow down is a superpower. Manipulators and high-pressure individuals rely on this societal need for speed to force errors, secure unconsidered agreements, and create a state of reactive panic where rational judgment is impaired. Your most potent countermove, therefore, is to consciously and unapologetically reintroduce the element of time as a buffer between a demand and your response. This act of temporal control is a nonverbal declaration that your decision-making process is sovereign and cannot be rushed by external pressures. For instance, when you receive a text or email demanding an immediate decision, perhaps phrased with pressure-building language like, "I need an answer on this right now or the opportunity is gone," the instinct is to respond quickly. The strategic approach is to pause, wait an hour, several hours, or even a day. Your eventual reply should be calm and structured. Thank you for your message. I have reviewed this and will need to give it the proper consideration it deserves. I will get back to you by specific time or date. This simple act dismantles their manufactured crisis and communicates that your schedule and judgment are not subordinate to their urgency. In face-to-face interactions, this translates to using phrases like, "That's an important point. I'm going to need some time to think it over," followed by a deliberate shift in conversation or a calm exit from the discussion. This practice achieves two critical objectives. First, it grants you the psychological space to analyze the situation logically, assess the true motives behind the pressure, and formulate a strategy without duress. Second, and just as importantly, it fundamentally alters the power dynamic. The person applying pressure is suddenly disarmed. Their primary tool, urgency, is rendered ineffective. Their impatience becomes their own burden, often causing them to reveal more of their hand or make concessions in their eagerness to regain momentum. By mastering time, you transition from being a reactor to being an orchestrator, choosing the moment of your action for maximum effect and ensuring that every move you make is a product of deliberation, not desperation. The fourth technique, demonstrating detached independence, is a profound exercise in shattering the illusion of your neediness, which is the primary lever manipulators use for control. This strategy is built on the foundational principle that power in any relationship dynamic is vested in the party that is perceived to care less, not in the one that demands more. Manipulators expertly exploit attachments,
whether to a relationship, a social standing, a professional opportunity, or their personal approval. They operate under the assumption that you are emotionally or practically chained to the outcome of your interactions with them. To neutralize this, you must calmly and consistently demonstrate through action rather than empty threat that you possess a state of complete inner sovereignty and are fully prepared to walk away without drama or negotiation. When confronted with a classic guilt-tripping statement, such as, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me," the predictable and desired response is to capitulate out of a sense of obligation or to engage in a draining debate. The strategically independent response is to offer a neutral acknowledgement, like, "I understand you see it that way," and then critically, to physically or emotionally create distance. This means becoming less available, delaying responses to messages, and redirecting your focus and energy to other areas of your life. This is not a petulant, silent treatment. It is a tangible recalibration of your priorities. The manipulator's ego and power base collapse when they are confronted with the evidence that their presence or approval is not your oxygen. They are forced to operate in a vacuum where their attempts to pull your strings meet no resistance because the strings themselves have been severed. This embodies the Machiavellian idea that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. This detached independence inspires a form of respectful fear, a fear of your self-sufficiency and emotional invulnerability. By proving you can leave, you never have to threaten it, and that unspoken reality becomes your most powerful deterrent.
The fifth technique, reversing the validation game, is a sophisticated maneuver that targets the manipulator's own deep-seated need for external validation, which they often project onto you. This approach recognizes that flattery, backhanded compliments, and even guilt trips are not merely expressions of opinion, but tactical tools designed to hook your ego and create a sense of debt or insecurity. Your counter-strategy is to refuse to be the audience for their performance, thereby denying them the satisfaction of controlling your emotional state. Instead of accepting praise that feels designed to inflate or obligate you, you gracefully deflect it. For example, if a colleague excessively praises you in a meeting, saying, "You're absolutely the best at this, no one else could have done it," instead of smiling and accepting, you might respond, "Thank you, that's kind, but the entire team contributed crucial ideas. Marie's insight on the logistics was particularly key." Then you immediately change the subject. This accomplishes three things. It robs the manipulator of the desired reaction, it shares the spotlight to diminish their attempt to single you out for manipulation, and it demonstrates your security and team orientation. Similarly, when faced with blame, you avoid justification, which is just another form of seeking validation for your actions. A simple, "I hear your point, but my decision stands," stated without heat, is far more powerful than a list of reasons. By consistently refusing to play the game of seeking or accepting their validation, you create a psychological vacuum. The manipulator, who is often addicted to the sense of control that comes from doling out approval or disapproval, finds themselves disoriented. They begin to subconsciously seek cues from you, looking for the approval of their disapproval. And in doing so, you subtly invert the entire power structure, becoming the silent arbiter whose opinion they now inexplicably wish to earn. The sixth technique, cultivating strategic ambiguity, is the art of replacing predictable clarity with purposeful mystery, making you an unreadable and therefore uncontrollable variable in any social equation. In a world that demands transparency and immediate answers, the ability to be comfortably vague is a significant strategic advantage. Manipulators are like psychological cartographers. They meticulously map your desires,
fears, intentions, and plans, using this knowledge to predict your behavior and set traps. Every clear statement you make about your goals or feelings provides them with a data point. To disarm them, you must become a territory without fixed landmarks. Your words should function as opaque walls, not clear windows. In a negotiation or a high-stakes conversation, when pressed for a definitive answer with a question like, "So, are you going to accept our offer or not?" you must resist the social pressure to provide a direct response. Instead, employ phrases like, "I'm considering all my options," "It's a possibility I'm weighing," or "I'll need to see how the situation develops." This enforced ambiguity is not a sign of indecision, it is a deliberate tactic to retain control and force the other party to reveal more of their own position. Your silence and vagueness create a psychological discomfort that they will rush to fill with concessions, explanations, or reveals of their own strategy. This embodies Machiavelli's advice to be both the lion and the fox, to have the strength of conviction, but the cunning to conceal your true path until the moment of action is most advantageous. When you are a mystery, you cannot be predicted, and when you cannot be predicted, you cannot be effectively controlled. You hold all the cards of potentiality, while they are left reacting to shadows.
The seventh technique, playing the strategic simpleton, is a masterclass in tactical humility, where you feign ignorance or naive curiosity to allow an opponent to entangle themselves in their own web. This is the opposite of a direct confrontation. It is a patient, indirect approach that leverages the manipulator's arrogance and condescension against them. By pretending not to understand the subtle insult, the passive-aggressive jab, or the underlying game, you disarm their aggression completely. They expect a fight, a defense, or a display of wounded pride, all of which would validate their attack. Instead, you respond with sincere, almost childlike curiosity. For instance, if someone attempts to belittle you with a comment like, "That's a surprisingly sophisticated idea for someone like you," you would not take the bait. Instead, you might tilt your head and reply, "Oh, that's interesting. What do you mean by someone like me? I'm genuinely curious about your perspective." Then, you wait. This response is a psychological judo throw. Their malicious intent, when met with a request for clarification, suddenly appears crude and unjustifiable. They are forced to either backtrack awkwardly, exposing the emptiness of their remark, or double down and articulate their insult in plain language, which makes them look like the aggressor. This technique requires immense patience and self-control. The victory does not come from a clever retort in the moment, but from calmly setting a trap of naivete and allowing the other person's own need to feel superior to lead them into a self-created pit. You are not playing dumb, you are playing a deeper game, using their contempt as the very tool for their exposure.
The eighth and most devastating technique is the execution of discreet sabotage, a method of psychological warfare so subtle it leaves no fingerprints. This is not about open conflict or direct insults. It is about planting small, untraceable seeds of doubt or redirecting narratives in a way that allows the manipulator's own ego to become the instrument of their downfall. The core vulnerability of arrogant and manipulative individuals is their obsession with their own image of superiority and control. Your strategy is to create tiny, almost imperceptible cracks in that carefully constructed facade. For example, if a boss takes credit for your work in a meeting, a direct accusation makes you look defensive. Instead, you might wait for an appropriate moment and say, "I'm glad you're highlighting the project's success. Building on the initial framework I presented, which you rightly endorsed, the team really brought it to life." This politely but firmly reinserts your contribution into the narrative. Another method is to redirect credit away from a credit-hogging colleague by saying, "I think Paul's earlier suggestion was the real catalyst for this solution." The power of discreet sabotage lies in its plausible deniability and its indirect nature. You are never the accuser, you are merely the observer, making a neutral comment. The manipulator, however, obsessed with their status, will often overreact to these subtle shifts. They may become flustered, make a mistake, or respond with disproportionate aggression, thereby exposing their insecurity to everyone present. You are not destroying them, you are merely creating an incline, and their own pride and need for control will cause them to slide down it. It is the ultimate Machiavellian move, winning a conflict so deftly that your opponent is not entirely sure a battle has even taken place, only that the ground beneath their feet has somehow, inexplicably, given way. By integrating these techniques, you undergo a fundamental transformation from a reactive individual to a sovereign strategist. You enter rooms not to please but to observe. You speak with purpose or not at all, and when challenged, you dissolve aggression with glacial calm. The manipulators and the disrespectful will find no purchase on your composure, no leverage in your attachments, and no predictability in your actions. You have become a mirror they cannot break, a wall they cannot scale, a mystery they cannot solve, and a strategist who, by mastering these arts, has become truly untouchable.